Alright guys, I'm going to be talking about something absolutely egregious that the Jaguars did 2 weeks ago. But before we talk about that, I want to talk about why it was egregious and why I absolutely hate this pick of Travis Etienne by the Jacksonville Jaguars. So if you've watched any of my videos, or not even if you've watched my videos, if you've been around the NFL community, like online, for the past 4 or 5 years, you'll know that we love to play armchair GM. And with playing armchair GM, we like to analyze, what works for teams and what doesn't. So it is generally believed that running backs that are drafted within the top 2 rounds are just completely wasted picks. You look at Saquon Barkley in 2018, just absolutely inexcusable. And you look at Rashad Penny and guys like Sony Michel, and you could have spent first round capital on another premium position instead of throwing it on a running back. Because the issue with a running back is that they're so dependent on the quarterback, they're so dependent on the offensive line, they're so dependent on the coaching staff being willing to give them touches. And not only that, but besides the quarterback, a running back usually touches the ball the most out of literally anyone else on the field. If you're a really, really good wide receiver, you might see 10 to 12 targets a game. And if you're obviously a quarterback, you're going to be touching the ball every play. But, all these running backs have different roles because not only are they generally smaller because they're usually the fastest guys on the field, but that also means they're probably one of the smallest guys on the field. So they need to be fresh. They need to be able to absorb hits from linebackers and defensive linemen. Because if you're a running back, if you're 200 pounds and you have guys that are 250, 260, maybe even up to 390, like as far as defensive linemen just diving at you, trying to rip your head off, going for your ankles, that's why careers in the NFL are so short. Now, as far as why the Jaguars pick was so bad, was because, well, first of all, Urban Meyer said something just so ridiculously stupid, which was that they got sniped on Kadarius Toney. So if they didn't draft Travis Etienne, they were going to draft Kadarius Toney, which, Toney's profile is just littered with red flags everywhere. But why this ETN pick was so bad was because Jacksonville was nowhere near a position to where they could pick Travis Etienne. I have an issue with where Najee Harris and where Javonte Williams were both selected in this draft by the Steelers and Broncos. Those guys were taken by teams that are or were much better than Jacksonville last year. The Steelers O-line is not what it once was. The days of Mike Munchak and David DeCastro and, all those guys who built that great wall, second best offensive line in the league for a few years behind the Cowboys, that's long gone. Like, that doesn't exist anymore. And, the Broncos, I guess it makes a bit of sense because, Melvin Gordon isn't getting any younger. He looked pretty good towards the end of last season. But even then, like, would you really, really, really invest a premium pick on a running back if you were a 5-11 team? And not only that, but they traded up to get him. So, and I think Javonte Williams is going to be fantastic. Like, I had Javonte Williams as my RB2 on the board, and I had Najee Harris as my RB1. So I had ETN as my RB3. But the issue with this pick is that it just doesn't make any sense. Because last year, the only position they got reasonable, good production out of, besides, Visca was all right. Josh Allen was hurt for a lot of the year, same with Chase on. The only one who really, really produced was a running back they found off the street. They literally released Leonard Fournette because they said that they had so much confidence in J-Rob that J-Rob just came into training camp all cylinders firing. But that's what happens with these guys. And we knew, like, there was a lot of talk in the dynasty community about James Robinson and what would happen to him. And I think we just gave the Jaguars too much credit because a lot of people were saying, oh my God, it's the only position they don't need. They have holes up and down their roster. Like, what's going to make them spend a premium pick on a running back? I'll tell you what, Urban Meyer and falling in love with guys who he recruited 4 or 5 years ago is going to prevent it from happening. So why this pick was so bad was because Jacksonville needs literally everything. The Trevor Lawrence pick was more than obvious. Like, a toddler could have told you to do that. There are only like 5 or 6 teams who wouldn't have taken Lawrence if he was there on the board. Also, this team was just littered with holes up and down the roster. If you're a 1-15 team, your issues likely go beyond running back. And the only game they won last year was a game where James Robinson did literally nothing, and it was week 1 against the Indianapolis Colts. So the Bears trade up from 20 to 11 to get Justin Fields, which means the Giants fall back 9 spots. And then the Giants snipe Kadarius Toney from Jacksonville. Yeah, horrible pick, especially considering who else was on the board. But then Urban Meyer said it broke our heart that Toney was taken. And honestly, I think taking Toney at 25 if he was available wouldn't have been much better, but it certainly would have been better than taking a running back. And I'm looking at all these teams that were picking behind Jacksonville in the first round, and it was Cleveland, Baltimore, New Orleans, Green Bay, Buffalo, Baltimore again, and Tampa Bay. So I don't think Cleveland or Baltimore would have taken a running back even if they got the opportunity. New Orleans maybe, since Kamara is, actually Kamara's, he's in the second, third year of his big contract. So I don't know, not really concerned about that. But even then, they could have a 1-2 punch. Ingram and Kamara in 2017 was the most disgusting 1-2 punch in NFL history. Green Bay maybe, but they're not. I know Green Bay's a dumb organization, but they're not that dumb to where they would have taken, a running back when they just paid Aaron Jones. Baltimore wasn't going to just because they have J.K. Dobbins. Cleveland wasn't going to because they have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Tampa, maybe, but they also got serviceable production from Fournette off the street last year. And they're a smart enough organization to learn from what's good and what's not. So I'm looking at all these guys that went behind Travis Etienne in the draft. And these are guys that would have been better picks at that spot. And literally, this is just me looking at the names that went after him. This is not me brainstorming of guys I would have wanted or guys they should have taken. Just guys that flat out would have been a better pick. So Greg Newsome, Rashad Bateman, Peyton Turner, Eric Stokes, Gregory Rousseau, probably Elijah Moore, Javon Holland, Christian Barmore, Tevin Jenkins, Liam Eichenberg, Trayvon Moehrig, Asante Samuel, Rondale Moore, Sam Cosmi, Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah, Terrace Marshall Jr., and that's 35, 40 picks right after the Jaguars selected. I don't know what role they have for James Robinson. Urban Meyer said in his press conference that they wanted it to be more of a committee thing, so they're going to have J-Rob and Carlos Hyde on first and second down and Travis Etienne on third down, which just creates all sort of messiness, and it's something that probably nobody will want anything a part of in fantasy. I don't know if Lawrence lobbied for Etienne in the same way that Burrow lobbied for Chase, but either way, this was just nothing about this pick is good, and I wouldn't be remotely excited if I was a Jaguars fan. Alright guys, that's going to do it for the video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're not already. Follow me on Twitter, links in the description down below. Anyways guys, have a good day, and peace out.